Perfume for me is an obsession. Marilyn Monroe is a hyper obsession. I think most of you already know that I am a huge fan of Marilyn. I do real detective work when it comes to anything beauty related and Miss Monroe. Now, most of you probably think of Chanel No. 5 when you think of Marilyn and fragrance, but I actually have 6 scents in total that I can prove that she actually used. I have receipts, I have photos, I have firsthand accounts, recorded quotes, published interviews, and even auction results. Not only do I know what she wore, but I know when and how. I've done a lot of short form surrounding Marilyn's fragrances, but this is the first time I'm compiling all of them into one video. I've also spent a damn near fortune trying to find bottles that are sealed, never been opened, still in the box, mint condition, little to no evaporation. I want to get as close to the exact fragrance that she would have worn. If you want to smell like Marilyn, some of these fragrances do exist today, but IFRA, the International Fragrance Association, actually came together in 1973, and a lot of these scents, many of the ingredients have been banned, and I will speak on more of that later, but you can't get the exact fragrance that she would have worn. I went even further to buy bottles from the 1950s or 1960s. That way I can get just as close as possible to the fragrances she would have worn, so when I describe these aromas, they're as exact as possible. I love fragrances so much that I have a growing vintage collection. I study the notes, the perfumers, and the stories behind these creations. I'm going to start with the least expensive item that, yes, you can still buy today. Her soap. According to this interview by legendary Oscar award-winning actor Louis Gossett Jr., Marilyn Monroe smelled like soap.
And Marilyn Monroe, then married to Arthur Miller, comes in to the actor's studio reeking of Lifebuoy soap.
They attended the actor's studio together in 1955. He also said this in another interview. She would walk into class with a man's shirt tied at the waist, her feet in flip-flops, the clean, musky smell of Lifebuoy soap wafting after her. With that Lifebuoy soap and that woman sitting there in flip-flops, I swear I've never been affected so much by a woman in all my life. I bought every single one I could find, but they're over 70 years old and they all smelled musty and mildewy and not like soap at all. So I had to throw them completely away and find another way to get my nose on this soap. Now, Lifebuoy soap did introduce other fragrance variations throughout the years, but it's pretty clear to me that he is describing the classic Lifebuoy soap, a carbolic soap, which according to Wikipedia, that's exactly what classic Lifebuoy soap was, a carbolic soap. They don't make the medicated carbolic soap anymore, at least not in the US, but this was a clue. I clearly had to find a carbolic soap. So I went digging on Amazon, I found this soap, and then I saw this review. The closest thing to the original Lifebuoy soap you'll find. This is the Blue Power carbolic soap, and let me tell you, when this arrived and I took it out of the box, my entire apartment smelled like this soap. The weirdest thing is that my grandparents' house, in the bathroom, they had this powder blue carpet, and I just remember this scent. And I kind of always thought as a kid it was the carpet, but it was 100% a carbolic soap. It is so nostalgic. I completely think of my grandparents when I smell this soap. Whew, it is so strong. It's this intense, medicated, kind of musky, disinfectant hospital type of scent, and it is really overwhelming to the nostrils, I'm not gonna lie. It's so distinctive that once you smell this soap, you will never forget it. And honestly, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Anbesol, that product that you put on your tooth when you have a toothache. It's extremely strong medicated scent like that. Even this review says it's a strong odor and it's not a typical medicated soap. So I guess this is something even stronger than what exists on the market. Of course, I immediately took a bath and tried this out, and it did leave a scent on my skin, but not such an offensive, strong odor, more like a clean, antiseptic, musky scent. But you could definitely smell it. I definitely did not expect to associate Marilyn Monroe with the smell of my grandparents' house. So for only $6, you can buy this Blue Power Carbolic Soap on Amazon, but buyer beware, it is strong. I've read some of the reviews after a short video I did, which are kind of hilarious to read, but some people are like, yuck, this was strong. I immediately threw it away. Just know that if you use it, it will leave a light medicated antiseptic smell, somewhat musky on the skin. It's not super overwhelming, but I do keep it in the pack and in a drawer inside a closet. Otherwise, it's all you can smell. Yeah, there seems to be a clean theme amongst most of these fragrances, so I think Marilyn, she really liked to smell clean. A lot of aldehydes. There was a receipt that came up for auction showing Marilyn purchased 6 bottles of toilet water to be sent to the Beverly Hills Hotel. And the fragrance was Floris Rose Geranium. So the perfume has long been discontinued, but you could still get the bath essence and the soap. Of course, I bought both, but it seems that they have relaunched the fragrance and it is now in an eau de parfum concentration rather than the eau de toilette, the toilet water. I actually love the bath essence and it's quite strong and it really does linger. Now, at first scent, I find with Rose Geranium, you kind of get that citronella candle as a top note. That must be the lemon in the top. But as you wear this, it does fade and it has this really strong true rose, extremely green. If you've ever smelled an actual rose geranium leaf, it's so potent, it's so strong, and this smells, I mean, so realistic, photorealistic to a rose geranium leaf. So the name is perfect, but it's a very beautiful fragrance. It does have a kind of soapy quality. It's quite potent, but it does soften down, and it has a very light, woodsy, musky base note. You can almost barely detect that. The rose geranium, the heart notes, really stay pretty strong throughout this fragrance. Now, the vintage bottle, the juice was green, and in the movie The Misfits, she actually mentions a green perfume.
What is that beautiful smell? It smells like green perfume.
The sage, darling.
Oh, sure. I never smelled it except in bottles.
Now, Marilyn would have purchased these bottles in 1959, and she shot The Misfits a year later. Also, Arthur Miller, her husband, who was a playwright, he was the screenwriter on this film, and a lot of what he based this film on was Marilyn. So I think it was based on her life, and I do think that he sort of used her perfume in this scene. Even the bath essence, you could literally wear this like a perfume oil. But yeah, it's extremely potent. Okay, we need to move on to number 3. Now, many have said Marilyn's favorite fragrance was indeed Chanel No. 5. But this next one is definitely a contender for the top spot. We've got pictures, receipts, we even have a quote. Here's Marilyn in 1950 holding 2 bottles of Lanvin Arpège. Here she is in 1960 on the set of The Misfits, and there you can see at her vanity is a bottle of Lanvin Arpège. In this scene from How to Marry a Millionaire, she actually splashes on, yes, you guessed it, Lanvin Arpège. In this book, Personal, there are actually 2 receipts showing the purchase of Arpège. You have the Arpège spray, and here you have the Arpège cologne. I should point out that Marilyn saved every receipt the last few years of her lives. That's why you can find out exactly what she bought. She saved every correspondence, notes, memos. I can even match up receipts to like when she got her hair done for which event by which hairstylist. So that makes 2 receipts, and then this receipt actually recently came up for auction, so that makes 3 that I found for Lanvin Arpège. Reporters asked her in the past like what she wore to bed. Basically, they wanted to know a nightgown, pajamas, and she cheekily said Chanel No. 5, implying that she slept in the nude, which seemed to be the truth. We also have this quote from an Earl Wilson interview in 1955. He asks, "Is it true you wear one thing to bed, Chanel No. 5? She now replied, "I like to wear something different once in a while. Now and then, I like to switch to Arpège." I think she was a lot more clever than people give her credit for. I couldn't wait to try Arpège. Now, I read in this book, Scent and Subversion. This is my favorite book on finding anything about vintage fragrances. So Arpège was created in 1927, and you have the perfumers here. Arpège is sensual beauty, slightly corrupted. At the end of the night, dining and dancing in stilettos, silk, and furs. This peach-led floral is enriched and fattened and rounded by ambroin, the primary molecule in ambergris. And its contrast of fresh peach with an erotic base makes Arpège a classic vintage fragrance that nods both to the good girl and the bad. I was like, I need to smell what this smells like. So we have top notes of bergamot, neroli, aldehydes, peach. Again, mentioning the aldehydes because that is that soapy, clean top note that comes throughout a lot of these fragrances. And the heart notes are rose, jasmine, lily of the valley, ylang ylang, and base notes, sandalwood, ambroin, vetiver, and musk. I'm sort of ashamed to admit that I spent $800 on this fragrance because initially I did open this on camera and it was sealed. There's still hardly any of it used. Unopened, mint condition. It had almost zero evaporation. So it was like a brand new bottle and I couldn't wait to smell this. There is a similarity to the original Chanel No. 5 because the aldehydes in the top note, it's this kind of bubbly, soapy, sparkling, clean scent that hits at the top. Maybe for a moment there is peach. You do get a little bit of that fruity floral heart notes when you first open the bottle, when you smell it at the cap, when you first apply it. But normally with vintage fragrances, the top notes and even the heart notes are probably going to dissipate the fastest. And because I've worn this many times now since I bought it, I'm left with that base note of it's sort of a dry fragrance. It dries down to a warm, kind of musky amber fragrance. It's really quite wonderful. I think it's a very sexy fragrance. I also think you're getting some of those animal notes, so that animalic quality kind of gives it that human skin quality. But that's also something that defines a lot of vintage fragrances is that animalic base note, which most people don't really like. I think it gets a lot stronger the older these fragrances get. As much as I like Arpège, if I'm honest, I do prefer Chanel No. 5, and that's the next fragrance we're going to talk about. Now with Chanel No. 5, we have a lot of evidence. I've seen 2 bottles come up from auction, both of them in the box. Now this second picture, that box is a newer box, so that one's a little suspicious. I have at least 5 Chanel receipts to prove that she actually bought this fragrance. It wasn't just a publicity stunt like a lot of people have believed. Like this is what the older box would look like. I believe this is from the 60s. This is the extrait. Now, you're gonna notice this is completely empty. I opened this on camera, used it. It had never been opened before, brand new, the whole thing, the whole spiel, right? I paid a fortune for it. I dropped the stopper. Very new thing to not have spray bottles. So I dropped the stopper, it broke, and everything evaporated. But what's happened is the juice inside has become so intense, so potent, and I'm just saving that little drop for this video. I love the original version of Chanel No. 5. So we've seen pictures of her with this bottle sitting next to the bed. This is the pure Perfume. This is the extrait. We've also seen pictures of her using the Eau de Cologne. Now, I have the Eau de Cologne here, and probably out of any vintage fragrance, this maybe is my favorite, although I say that a lot. But the cologne is just a lot lighter. I get a lot less of the animal note that most of these vintage fragrances have. This one just smells extremely clean. But the actual brand Chanel wanted to find the original quote where she says that she would put on Chanel No. 5 when she went to bed. They wanted to find out when she first mentioned her love of Chanel No. 5. So they shared this.
Well, you know, they ask you questions like, well, just an example, what do you wear to bed? You wear a pajama top, the bottoms of the pajamas, or the nightgown, or what kind of... So I said Chanel No. 5, because it's the truth.
Now, while she definitely used other fragrances, as I'm proving in this video, I do believe that Chanel No. 5 would have been her favorite, just by all the evidence. The original Chanel No. 5 is a masterpiece. I think people that appreciate fragrance understand how sort of revolutionary this was and how this is like a symphony of notes that come together. So Chanel No. 5 was a landmark perfume because of its use of aldehydes, which I've mentioned before in this video. Of course, Arpège also had aldehydes. Arpège is 1927, but Chanel came out in 1921. Now, I have to put this on. I actually put this on a male friend recently, and it smelled so clean and so soapy and so masculine. I feel that same vibe on myself with this one. I don't get fruity floral, anything like that. I get aldehydes, I get amber, I get warmth. No sweetness, I would say, but there's a warmth, amber, musky, sexy quality about it, but with a lot of soap, a lot of clean scent. It really lingers, and God, I love it so much. I love the original. Now, obviously, the original does not smell like the perfume that we have today, like Chanel No. 5. The closest I've found to the original Chanel No. 5 is the actual extrait that they sell today. I think this was like $130 for this tiny little bottle, but this is really good. I don't love the eau de toilette, but I actually think this smells really beautiful. There's a lot more floral notes in this. It's the closest that I found. I do want to see if I can get this last drop of this Chanel No. 5. I'll put it on my wrist. I love this perfume. I love it so much. I could easily call this a masterpiece. Today's Chanel No. 5 is not the same as what we would have smelled during Marilyn's time. Here's the gossip. In 1972, this article was published. Skunks with a $35 smell. Jacques Lille, chairman of Chanel Limited, revealed in a newspaper interview in Australia in February that one of the ingredients of Chanel No. 5, the world-famous perfume, is the sweat of the whipped obsidian civet cat. Mr. Lille said, "We don't usually like to admit, but it's one of those ancient techniques the Chinese invented. They put the cat's head into a sort of torture chamber, whip it, the cat gets mad, and it gives off a glandular secretion." Animal lovers were not having it. In 1973, this New York Times article came out. Last month, the 28,000-member Society of Animal Rights, Inc. called for a boycott of Chanel No. 5 on the grounds that civet is obtained from animals by cruel methods. Well, not long after, that's when EFR was formed in 1973. So all animal products were banned for the use in fragrances. There are also many other ingredients like oak moss that it was once heavily used in vintage fragrances, and now it's deemed as an allergen. I think you can use like 0.1% or some extremely tiny amount of oak moss. Most of these that I'm sharing, any modern version will be different from the perfume that Marilyn would have used. The report did say there was not actual cruelty to the animals, but they were kept in cages. So I'll put up that article here so you can pause and read. I'm more than okay with not using any animal products in fragrance. It's not necessary today. Why they would have used animal products too, just to note, is it tended to make a fragrance stronger, last longer, and as a base, it was almost like the sort of final symphony that melded all of these notes together. In this book, Lena Pepitone, who was Marilyn's seamstress, I think she also worked like part-time as her maid. She wrote this. In the bathroom vanity, she stored bottles and bottles of her favorite perfume, Chanel No. 5, along with the more expensive Joy. But rarely did she ever perfume herself, let alone bathe or shower. In fact, her small bathroom didn't even have a shower curtain. There's so much in this book that can actually be disputed. A lot of it seems to be very exaggerated or just completely false. So it's hard to believe a lot of things that come out of this particular book. And this woman, Lena Pepitone, actually said in an interview on TV that she only didn't bathe when she was depressed.
It referred to her personal habits as not being, she was not a very
well, only when she was
well-groomed
depressed.
person, right?
Mm-hmm. Only when she was depressed. But then
When she was depressed?
Mm-hmm.
Was she depressed a lot?
Yes.
So that's kind of a nasty rumor, but she claims that she used to wear Joy. Joy was actually Jackie Kennedy's favorite fragrance. This is long before the Kennedy rumor, so don't even start. But this was considered the most expensive fragrance in the world. It used 10,000 jasmine flowers and 28 dozen roses for 1 ounce. This is the purest, strongest, greenest rose scent you will ever find. And I could believe that she wore this because she also wore rose geranium. They're not exactly the same. This is rose and jasmine. It's really intense. It's really potent. I won't even take off the cap because My husband said that he could smell it in the bathroom, which is like 2 rooms away the last time when I opened this brand new bottle. It smells very much like a rose garden. The stems, a lot of green top notes. It's very pure, photorealistic, true rose floral. But then you have the jasmine. I would say sometimes jasmine can get a bit indolic, and it does have that vibe. There's almost a tiny metallic punch to it. My husband actually hated it, unfortunately, but I could really appreciate this for the masterpiece of a fragrance it is. Really see a very ultra feminine, strong woman wearing this fragrance. And finally, the last fragrance. In her address book from 1962, she wrote one line under the tab Perfume. C'est lui, Jean de Say. Now this perfume actually means the one. I've never found a bottle or receipt. There's no pictures. This was a recent find for me and it totally shocked me. There was still one fragrance out there that I didn't know about. Of course, I bought a bottle immediately. This is a floral sheep fragrance that was launched in 1938. Top notes are rose, jasmine, gardenia, iris, and heliotrope. Heart notes are hawthorn, hyacinth, and may rose. Base notes are civet, ambergris, leather, oak moss, and sandalwood. This one, again, it has a similarity to Chanel No. 5, to Arpège. I think with a lot of us, whenever we like a certain style of fragrance, we'll buy a lot of similar scents, similar notes. I think this one is similar to the others, but I think it's drier and I think it's sweeter. It still has that warm amber. You get a tiny touch of leather. It definitely, again, leans a bit masculine. It's a lot more woodsy. You have the oak moss and the sandalwood mixed together, so there's a lot more of a woody base. This one's really beautiful, and this bottle had never been opened. It was brand new, and I have been using it a lot. As you can see, a lot of it has gone. A lot of it has dissipated, and that's just because I've been using it. I really, really like this particular scent. I also think of Marilyn in 1962. This is like Poochie Marilyn. A lot of my friends, my fashion friends, call this chic Marilyn. I thought I'd put this base notes review on the screen, so if you want to read through it, because there's not a ton of information on Jean de Say, C'est lui. I find this one to be more aromatic, less like, there's no aldehydes, there's no soap. You definitely get the rose. It's a really beautiful fragrance, and because a lot of these notes are banned, there's only one way to smell a fragrance like this, and that's really to find a vintage bottle, which is not easy to do. Whichever perfume she did choose to wear, here's how she'd wear it. In this interview, they ask her, what about perfume? I spray it on my ankles, back of my knees, and all the way up to my eyebrows, so the fragrance really belongs to me. I will definitely be adding fragrance onto my ankles and back of my knees from now on, and my eyebrows. What little I have. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into vintage fragrance. Maybe this will encourage you to seek out some of these unique scents and find these vintage fragrances from the past, and to celebrate the perfumers who so artistically create these symphonies of smell. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.